Howdy, readers, and howdy, film buffs. I'm Jason, and this is Chapter and Verse. As promised, this is my best of 2018 movies video. I said I'd put it up on the eve of the Oscars, and that is exactly what I'm doing. So, all told, I have now seen 24 films that were released here in America in 2018, and so I'm going to go through my favorites with you. But before I do that, I'm just going to briefly discuss the two biggest disappointments of 2018 for me. And the first of those is Paul Schrader's newest film, First Reformed. This was maybe the film I was most excited to see in 2018. I still remember when I went to London at one point, like I was walking through the tunnels in the underground, and there were these massive ads for it, for First Reformed. And I hadn't seen it by that time, and it just made me even more excited to see it. First Reformed is a film about a young minister, right? Young, he's in his 40s. But a young, kind of troubled, sickly minister who is getting ready to kind of celebrate the anniversary of the founding of his church. And it had been billed as a kind of reinvention of Ingmar Bergman's Winter Light. So as you can see, this movie had a lot going for it. A lot of kind of boxes already ticked from the outset for me. And when I started watching it, this was some months ago, when I started watching it, for the first 30 minutes or so, I was thinking, wow, yeah, this is going to be my best film of the year. I just loved it. It was a 10 out of 10 for the first 30 minutes. And then it went down to a 9. And then it went down to an 8. And it went down to a 7. And it ended at a 6 out of 10. It was the worst film I saw from 2018. It was utterly heavy-handed. Especially insofar as it was trying to kind of critique politics and the ways in which kind of corporate interests get in bed with religion. And that is absolutely valid material for critique, right? I myself feel scathingly toward corporate interests corrupting religion. But the movie was just so ham-handed about it. Like, it was so obvious and just so clunky. And then the ending of the film was just fucking just whacked. I mean, I have no idea. I have no idea what the ending of the film was meant to say. So imagine my disappointment then, my surprise, on the Metacritic kind of compiling a film critic top 10 list that they do each year. First Reformed is number 2, okay? It has taken first place on 22 film critic lists, second place on 15, and it has appeared on 101 additional top 10 lists from the year. I thought it was just a turkey, basically. It was also just theologically stupid, right? So the Reverend in the movie, the Ethan Hawke character at one point in voiceover, refers to the book of Revelations. Okay, it's not the book of Revelations, plural. It's the book of Revelations, singular. A minister would know that. At one point, he refers to a pew as a bench. A minister would know that it's a pew that he is sleeping on, not a bench. It's a pew. My second biggest disappointment of the year was actually a movie that I still liked, but I was fully expecting to love it. And that is actually number 1 on the Metacritic kind of compiling of critics' top 10 lists. And that is Roma from Alfonso Cuarón. It has taken first place on 65 top 10 lists, second place on 33 top 10 lists, and has appeared on 77 other top 10 lists. So Alfonso Cuarón is a director I have admired for a very long time. Since the early 90s, in fact, early to mid-90s, when he released A Little Princess, which I still think is one of his best movies, if not his best movie. And Roma, I mean, God, everybody's been talking about it, right? Friends of mine have seen it and have just been raving about it. Said it's their favorite movie of the year last year, and all the critics are going apeshit about it. Some of my subscribers have gone really nuts about it. And let me just say that I think it's the best directed movie of 2018. I think it's the best shot movie of 2018. There are 3 scenes in Roma that are 3 of the best scenes from 2018. But my problem with Roma was that apart from the main character, the maid, okay, and apart from her friend, who is the cook in the household, every other character in the film is just a piece of shit. I mean, they're horrible, despicable people. The rich mother, okay, her asshole, adulterous husband, right, who buys a fucking ginormous car. It's way too big for his garage just because he wants to show how big and powerful and entitled he is. The boyfriend of the maid, who is this kind of uber macho douchebag who thinks he's in a Akira Kurosawa movie or something. All of the children, right? The children who are just screaming and squawking and squalling and misbehaving through the whole damn thing. I have a real hard time with loud, obnoxious kids. I think it comes from my days working at Barnes & Noble and listening to the children's section in the back, and all of those kids who just didn't want to leave the train. So my dislike of loud, obnoxious, misbehaved punk kids comes from those years, and this movie did nothing to make me feel more warmly toward children who behaved like that. So Roma was an easy movie to admire. Technically, it was kind of virtuosic, really. But it was a very difficult movie to like, and so it was my other most disappointing film of the year. Now on to my favorite films. I'm going to do a top 5, and I'm going to lead up to my number 1. So my number 5 movie of the year was this one, and this came as a surprise. Can You Ever Forgive Me? Kelly and I watched this, I think 2 nights ago, maybe last night. I think it was last night, actually. This stars Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant. It is based on a true story about a celebrity biographer named Lee Israel, who is kind of fallen on hard times. And she takes it into her head to start embellishing and then inventing whole cloth letters from long dead writers and sells them to collectors. And yeah, it is brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. It's incredibly bookish. As we were watching this movie, I was just like, my God, this is a movie for BookTube audiences. Well, there are a lot of really great jokes in it, and the performances are tremendous. Richard E. Grant, I've never seen him do better work, which is saying a lot. And I've often wondered about kind of the scope of Melissa McCarthy's talents, and this movie went a long way toward convincing me that she can really do anything. But it has all of these wonderful, wonderful literary jokes, in-jokes in it, right? About Nora Ephron, about Tom Clancy. The best joke in the film is actually about Tom Clancy. So look for this. It's wonderful. This is my number 5 film of the year. My number 4 film of the year, I don't have it with me, is a horror film, which I saw really early last year in the theater, and that is Hereditary. And apart from being just absolutely shit scary, the best thing about Hereditary is its lead performance by Toni Collette. She is good in everything she does. She is not only better than she's ever been in this movie, but I think it was probably the best performance I saw from last year. There's one scene in particular in the film where her and her son are at kind of loggerheads at the dinner table and have it out. And that is a master class in acting. That scene is just, it's freaking riveting. And it's almost entirely to do with Toni Collette. So Hereditary is my number 4. My number 3 film of the year is this little known Australian film called Sweet Country. And yeah, I mean, there were a number of movies last year that were about race and about racism. I have not seen all of them, but I would be willing to bet that Sweet Country is the best film about racism from last year. And it's a movie that no one has seen. I think it made, at the American box office, I think it made less than $100,000, which, I mean, if you think about the fact that any of these big Marvel movies probably make $100,000 in 15 minutes at the box office, that tells you something. But Sweet Country is set in early 20th century Australia, and it is about an Aboriginal man who lives on the homestead of a white man, played by Sam Neill. The Aboriginal man is played by a newcomer to the cinema. I don't know what he's done with the rest of his life. He's a pretty old guy, but this is his first film. His name is Hamilton Morris. And anyway, his character kills a drunk, crazy white man suffering from PTSD after World War One, who is shooting into the house. Thinks that this Aboriginal man is harboring a boy who he believes may have stolen something from him. Anyway, this crazy young white guy is just going nuts and is firing bullets into the house, this, that, and the other thing, and kicks in the door, and the main character, played by Hamilton Morris, shoots him, kills him, and then he goes on the run because that's essentially what he has to do, right? No jury, no one's going to think him justified in doing what he's done, although he clearly was. And it's just beautifully shot. It's sad. It's unafraid of saying this is what human beings are capable of at their worst. And that's hard to watch, but it's wonderful as well. So that's my number 3 film of the year, Sweet Country. Number 2 is a documentary, They Shall Not Grow Old, directed by Peter Jackson, of Lord of the Rings fame. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell you that there's a moment in that film that made me feel like I felt when I first saw Jurassic Park on the big screen. The moment in Jurassic Park where you first see the dinosaur, right? It's a brontosaurus or a brachiosaurus or something like this. I still remember having my breath literally taken away. And They Shall Not Grow Old has a moment in it that did exactly the same thing to me. I won't tell you anything more about the film other than to say, again, it's a documentary about World War One. But I will link the trailer for They Shall Not Grow Old in the description box below. If you haven't watched the trailer yet, if it's playing at a cinema near you, do yourself a favor and see it on the big screen. You won't regret it. Trust me on this. And my number 1 favorite film of the year is The Favourite, right? Fittingly. It's the new film from Yorgos Lanthimos, I think is his name. He's a Greek director. And it stars Olivia Colman, Rachel Weisz, and Emma Stone. It is beautifully shot, bizarrely shot and staged, actually. It is kinky. It is funny and wicked. It's really sad. It has an ending that a lot of people apparently haven't understood. There are articles about what does the ending mean, because a lot of audiences have been that puzzled by the ending. I thought the ending was freaking brilliant. I thought in many ways it was the best thing about the film, which is saying a lot because the film's basically perfect. It's got Nicholas Hoult in it, who is often really, really good, but he is far better in this than I've ever seen him. If you're not put off by a movie that is kind of just deliciously kind of sexy and wrong, check out The Favourite, because it's unlike anything I've seen in a very, very long time. In fact, the only thing that I can think of that feels kind of cut from similar cloth was Sally Potter's adaptation of Virginia Woolf's Orlando, which came out in 1993, and which I was also fortunate enough to see on the big screen. My family and I drove to Denver to see that. And Orlando had the same costume designer, Sandy Powell, I think is her name. And Orlando also just had a lot of fun with kind of questions of power and gender and wit. And I feel like they would make a really great double feature, Orlando and The Favourite. So if you've seen and liked Orlando, and feel like Orlando could have even used more jokes, you probably really like The Favourite. So anyway, those are my favorite movies from 2018. If you've seen any of these, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys again very soon. Adios.